I never believed in ghosts until the night I found the old cassette tape in my attic. It was labeled Family Memories, 1992. My name was on it, but I didn't remember recording it. The attic smelled of dust and forgotten things, the kind of place where shadows cling to the rafters like cobwebs, thick and insistent, as if the darkness itself had grown roots over the years. I was cleaning out the house after my parents died, their sudden car accident leaving me with this creaking Victorian relic in the suburbs, a sprawling structure with gabled roofs that pierced the sky like accusatory fingers. The weight of inheritance pressed on me, not just the mortgage or the upkeep, but the intangible residue of lives lived and lost within these walls, echoes of laughter and arguments that seemed to linger in the very grain of the wood. I climbed the pull-down stairs, flashlight beam cutting through motes of dust that danced like reluctant spirits, and there it was, tucked in a box of faded photographs and yellowed letters. The tape player, an ancient relic from my father's study, hummed to life with a reluctant whir, and my 8-year-old voice crackled through the speakers. "This is me, hiding from the man in the walls." I froze, the words hanging in the stale air like a threat. What man? The context of my childhood flooded back in fragmented waves. The endless games of hide-and-seek with my sister in the labyrinthine hallways. The way the house seemed to breathe at night. Floorboards sighing under invisible weight. Drafts whispering secrets through cracks that shouldn't have been there. Small fissures that widened imperceptibly over time, as if the house was slowly unraveling its own seams. But this tape, it wasn't a game. It felt like a confession unearthed from the depths of repression, a buried fragment of terror I'd long since rationalized away as childish imagination. As I listened, the escalation began slowly, my young voice describing scratches in the plaster that appeared overnight, like claws testing the barrier between worlds. The marks were deliberate, forming patterns that mimicked faces, distorted and pleading, eyes hollowed out as if gouged by desperation. Whispers followed, faint at first, mimicking my mother's laugh, but twisting into something mocking, a cruel parody that echoed her warmth into malice, turning nurturing tones into something predatory and cold. "He's coming closer," I said on the tape, my breath quickening, the child's fear palpable even now, decades later, stirring a nausea that rose like bile in my throat. The footsteps echoed faintly in the background, not mine, deliberate thuds, like someone pacing just beyond reach, measuring the distance with patient malice. Tension built as I realized the attic door was ajar, swinging gently on hinges that hadn't moved in years, and a soft scraping sound started from the walls around me now, rhythmic and insistent, as if nails were dragging along the other side, testing for weakness. My heart pounded, a drumbeat of dread syncing with the tape's rhythm, each beat amplifying the isolation of the moment. I pressed play again, desperate for more context, but the tape looped on a single phrase, "Don't let him out." The repetition drilled into my mind, each cycle amplifying the urgency, embedding itself like a mantra of doom. The climax hit when the wall beside the tape player bulged outward, plaster cracking like brittle bones under strain, dust cascading down in a gritty shower that stung my eyes and filled my lungs. A hand, pale, elongated, fingers unnaturally long and jointed like a spider's legs, pushed through, curling toward me with a hunger that transcended the physical, veins pulsing with an otherworldly rhythm. I screamed, the sound raw and primal, dropping the player which clattered to the floor, tape spilling like entrails across the dusty boards. But the voice from the tape laughed then, my own laugh, distorted into a guttural cackle that filled the space, mocking my terror with its familiarity. In the resolution, I barricaded the attic with whatever I could find, boxes, old furniture, my own trembling body against the door. But that night, as I lay in bed downstairs, the sheets tangled around me like restraints. I heard the whispers again, calling my name from inside the walls, soft and insistent, as if the barrier was thinning, the divide between safety and the unknown growing perilously fragile. It wasn't over. That was just the first echo, a prelude to the symphony of horrors this house had composed over generations, each note building on the last in a crescendo of unease. That echo led me to the second story, one I pieced together from my sister's old journal, found tucked under her bed amid dust bunnies and forgotten socks. She vanished 10 years ago, and I'd always thought it was a runaway case. Her teenage rebellion finally boiling over into disappearance, perhaps lured by the lights of the city or a bad crowd. The kind of narrative that comforts the bereaved with its simplicity. But holding that leather-bound book, its pages warped from humidity, I felt the fragility of that assumption shatter, replaced by a dawning horror that her absence was far more intimate, woven into the fabric of this place. The journal started innocently enough. Entries about our shared childhood in this house. The way she'd wake up with bruises she couldn't explain. Purple blooms on her arms like fingerprints from an unseen grip. Tender spots on her ribs that ached with every breath. Marks that faded but left a psychological scar. A constant reminder of vulnerability. Context set in the dim glow of her bedside lamp, which I'd flicked on out of habit, casting long shadows that seemed to reach for the pages as I turned them, yellowed with age and spotted with what might have been tears, or perhaps sweat from fevered nights. "Something watches me sleep," she wrote in her neat, looping script, detailing nights where she'd jolt awake, certain eyes bored into her from the darkness, a presence heavy and watchful, like a predator sizing up prey, its gaze a tangible weight pressing down on her chest. Escalation unfolded over weeks, each entry a step deeper into paranoia that felt all too real. Shadows lengthening in her room unnaturally, stretching across the floor like inky tendrils seeking her out, coiling around furniture legs as if alive. Objects moving when she wasn't looking, a cherished doll repositioned to face the wall, its glass eyes now averted in silent accusation. Or a favorite book opened to a page describing entrapment, a cold breath on her neck during baths, the steam in the mirror fogging into shapes that resembled hands, fingers splayed as if ready to grasp. She delved into the house's history, whispers from neighbors about previous owners who lost family members to the walls, children vanishing during play, swallowed by hidden compartments, or worse, adults claiming auditory hallucinations that drove them to madness, institutionalization following fits of raving about voices in the vents. The structure itself whispered to be built on unsettled ground, perhaps an old burial site or worse, a place where ley lines converged, amplifying the unnatural. Tension mounted as her handwriting grew frantic, ink smudged with sweat or haste. "It's pulling me in. The floorboards shift at night, groaning like they're alive." She described sleepless vigils, pressing her ear to the wood to hear the muffled movements below, the house's skeleton rearranging itself with subtle cracks and pops. One entry detailed her trying to escape, boarding up her door with nails hammered in desperation, the hammer's echo ringing like a funeral knell, each strike reverberating through the house as if awakening something dormant. But the climax came in a scrawled page, letters jagged and uneven. "It has my hand now. I can feel it dragging me down, cold fingers wrapping around my wrist, pulling me into the dark between the floors, the space where light never reaches." The resolution was her last words, barely legible. "If you find this, burn the house. Don't let it take you too." But I didn't. Guilt twisted in me like a knife. How could I, when this was all I had left of her, a tangible link to the sibling I'd failed to protect? Instead, I slept in her room that night, the air thick with her faded perfume, mingled with the musty scent of abandonment. And as the floor creaked beneath me, not from age but from something shifting below, I felt the tug, subtle at first, like roots wrapping around my ankles, insistent and unyielding, drawing me toward the same fate. Her echo joined the first, pulling me deeper into the house's embrace. A familial chain linking us across time, unbreakable and insidious. If you're still listening after that, stay with me. Some echoes need to be heard fully, or they follow you home, clinging like burrs to your thoughts. Don't turn away yet. The pull gets stronger if you do, drawing you back with invisible threads woven from curiosity and fear, threads that tighten with every ignored whisper. The third echo came from a found footage clip on an old camcorder I discovered in the basement. Its lens cracked like a fractured eye, but the battery somehow still charged, humming with a life it shouldn't have after years in the damp, as if sustained by the house's own malevolent energy. The footage opened with shaky shots of the house's exterior, dated 2005. Me as a teen, awkward and curious, filming for a school project on haunted homes. The irony now lost on no one. A youthful folly that now feels like prescience. Context: rainy autumn evening. Leaves slick underfoot, plastering to my shoes as I circled the property. The camera capturing the warped windows that seemed to stare back with judgmental pains. Rain streaking down like tears on glass, blurring the boundary between outside and in. I narrated on tape in a voice laced with bravado. This place has secrets buried deep. The wind howled, carrying the scent of wet earth and decay, amplifying the isolation, making the house feel like an island adrift in a sea of storm. Escalation built as I ventured inside, the handheld light flickering over peeling wallpaper that curled like dying skin, capturing orbs of dust that moved against the draft, swirling in patterns too deliberate to be random, almost forming letters or faces if you squinted, ephemeral messages dissolving before they could be deciphered. Whispers picked up on the audio, faint at first, like radio static from another station, then clearer. Names of past residents: Eleanor, Thomas, pleas for release that echoed hollowly, as if spoken from a great distance, voices overlapping in a dissonant choir. The camera caught me pausing at a mirror in the hallway, my reflection lagging a second behind, smiling when I didn't, its grin widening unnaturally, teeth gleaming in the flash, a doppelganger's mockery that chilled even through the years. A chill ran through me even then, but youthful skepticism pushed me on, dismissing it as editing error or fatigue. Tension peaked in the basement stairs, narrow and treacherous, where the footage showed my foot slipping on nothing, dry wood, no water or debris, tumbling down into darkness, the lens spinning wildly to reveal nothing, just endless black that seemed to swallow the light, an abyss that pressed against the screen. But then a face, my own, older, decayed, skin sallow and eyes sunken, looked up from the shadows, mouthing "Join us" with lips that didn't move quite right, a silent invitation laced with decay. The sight now sends bile rising. Back then, I rationalized it as a trick of the light, perhaps a shadow play from the storm outside. The climax was the camcorder dropping from my flailing hands, static erupting as hands. Multiple, pale and grasping, nails broken and dirt-caked. Reached from the floor, clawing at the air inches from the lens, fingers twitching with desperate need. Resolution. The tape ends with my scream cutting off abruptly, replaced by a low, rumbling hum that vibrates through the speakers, a sound that resonates in your chest like an internal earthquake. Watching it now, in the same basement, the air grows thick with mildew and something metallic, like blood, and I swear the static hums from the walls again, syncing with my pulse, pulling me back into the frame. These echoes aren't memories. They're invitations, extended with bony fingers, urging participation in the house's eternal game. A game where the players never truly leave. That basement footage connected to the fourth echo, the cosmic one that unraveled everything, threading the personal horrors into something vast and indifferent, expanding the intimate dread into an existential chasm. It started with dreams after finding the camcorder. Vast, starless voids where the house floated like a speck adrift in an ocean of nothingness, its lights winking out one by one, swallowed by the encroaching dark. Context. Me, alone in the living room, midnight oil burning low, the clock ticking backward with a metronomic insistence that mocked time itself, hands reversing as if rewinding fate. Books on astronomy I'd read as a kid resurfaced from shelves, tales of voids that swallow light, black holes as cosmic maws hungry for matter and meaning, concepts that now felt eerily personal. Escalation. The dreams intensified night after night, the house expanding into infinite corridors that twisted like Escher's nightmares, walls pulsing with veins of darkness that throbbed in time with my heartbeat, each pulse echoing the house's growing appetite. I woke each time drenched in sweat, with ink on my skin, symbols I didn't recognize, angular and ancient, glowing faintly under moonlight, as if branded by the void, runes that whispered of forgotten cosmologies when stared at too long. Whispers evolved into a chorus, not human but alien, a cacophony describing the house as a tear in reality, built on a fault line between worlds where dimensions bled into one another, bleeding memories and madness alike. Tension built as reality frayed at the edges, clocks stopping mid-tick, their hands frozen in supplication, time halting in deference to the greater force. Mirrors showing alternate lives where I never left this place, siblings still alive but hollow-eyed, their smiles rictus masks hiding the emptiness within, lives unlived branching into infinities of regret, doors leading to rooms that hadn't existed before, filled with furniture from lives I never lived, chairs that creaked under absent weights. The climax erupted one storm-lashed night, thunder rumbling like the growl of some colossal beast. The entire house shuddered, foundations groaning as walls dissolved into abyssal black, peeling away layer by layer to reveal the yawning maw beneath, a void that hummed with the promise of oblivion. I stood at the edge of the precipice in the grand foyer, seeing the echoes of all past inhabitants tumbling into the void, my parents, sister, faceless others, their faces pleading, arms outstretched in futile grabs for solidity, fingers brushing mine in a final, desperate connection. A force yanked me forward, cosmic hunger pulling at my soul with gravitational inexorability, the sensation of being stretched thin, atoms unraveling, identity dissolving into the infinite. In the resolution, I clawed back to the mortal plane, sealing myself in the attic with frantic prayers and wards drawn from half-remembered folklore, symbols etched into the doorframe with a trembling knife. But the void lingers in my peripheral vision, a smudge at the corner of sight, waiting for the next slip, the next moment of weakness, ever patient in its pursuit. These four echoes intertwined like roots under the house, each one feeding the others in a symbiotic dread. The man in the walls was my echo, manifesting his childhood fear, a primal terror rooted in the unknown. My sister's pull, the familial tether dragging us down, binding blood to the bones of the structure. The footage's grasp, capturing the visual proof of invasion, making the intangible inescapably real. The void's hunger, the overarching appetite that bound them all, a universal force. Indifferent to individual pleas, I tried to leave, packed my bags last week with trembling hands. The suitcase heavy with more than clothes, fragments of journals, tapes, footage, but the key wouldn't turn in the lock, the tumblers clicking in defiance, as if the house itself refused release. The doors, they breathe now, expanding and contracting with a rhythm that mimics lungs, exhaling drafts laced with the scent of decay, inhaling the essence of those who dwell within. Around the midpoint of these tales, when the dread starts to settle in your bones like marrow-deep chill, if this feels too close, too real, perhaps pause and reflect on your own home's secrets. The creaks you dismiss as settling wood, the shadows that linger in corners like uninvited guests, the faint scents that arise unbidden, reminiscent of places long forgotten. Maybe whisper it to someone else, share the weight across a phone line or over coffee. Let another carry an echo or two, diluting the solitude that amplifies the horror. It lightens the pull, if only for a moment, a brief respite in the gathering storm, allowing you to breathe before the next wave crashes. Now, as the stories fold back on themselves in recursive loops, I see the pattern emerging clearer. The house isn't haunted in the traditional sense. It's a memory trap, cosmic in its cruelty, feeding on what we forget until it consumes us whole, regurgitating our pasts as weapons, twisting joy into torment with surgical precision. Psychological fractures from the start, splintering the mind with doubt, planting seeds of uncertainty that bloom into full-blown terror. Paranormal whispers building layer by layer to found footage revelations that demand belief, forcing confrontation with the captured truth. Urban legends of the void beneath, myths rooted in the soil of this suburbia, where normalcy hides the abyss. Tales passed in hushed tones at block parties or over fences. Examples abound in the neighbors' averted eyes, the real estate listings that gloss over structural peculiarities with vague assurances, the old photos in the attic showing families posed stiffly, as if aware of the camera's lie, smiles frozen in feigned happiness. I sit here, tape running out with a final hiss, walls closing in incrementally, the air pressure dropping like before a storm, heavy with anticipation. The final echo is yours now, imprinted in the cadence of these words, a mark that time cannot erase. If you're still here, listening to the end despite the warnings woven throughout, you're part of it now. One of us, bound by these words that echo in your mind long after silence falls, resonating in quiet moments when the world stills. Don't forget what you've heard. Repress it, and it festers like an untreated wound. Acknowledge it, and it spreads, branching into new narratives. Tell others. Let the echoes propagate like a virus, from attic to ear, house to house, carrying the infection of awareness. What waits in your walls might already be listening, attuned to the frequency of your fears, ready to whisper your name, drawing you into the chorus. Word count, 3195.